5 creepy true cemetery horror stories. All right.
Washington homeowners, look, we need to talk. Solar
I don't care about solar power, man. And you just DDoS me. No. Now they know I live in Washington. Oh, I forgot to turn off Spotify.
I'm a cemetery operations coordinator, or you can just call me a cemetery manager. Part of my job is sitting down with guests and family members of the deceased to set up funerals, facilitate the sales of plots, etc. A 30-something-year-old man named Antonio, very spiritual man, once sat down with me to purchase a plot for his sick father who was in hospice care. Antonio was a Hispanic man with a very thick accent, and I saw in his eyes he was a very caring man. He showed me pictures of his father, who also looked like a very sweet man.
What's up with this house? Looks like no way, this is okay, never mind. This is office.
Much too young to be taken away from his family.
I thought it was a house.
But unfortunately, the man's time came that same week, and Antonio arranged for his father's funeral service at the cemetery. It was a very stormy day, the day of the funeral, which is thought to be a sign of good luck. The funeral procession stopped in front of the front office building briefly.
A lot of bodies. Dude. Imagine how much time and money it took for each one of those. Probably like a couple mil.
I stepped outside under the front awning of the building and saw Antonio in the car behind the hearse. We waved at each other. Due to the weather, I went back inside until the procession was ready to proceed to the burial site. I got in one of the cemetery pickup trucks and followed the procession to the final stop, where I would stand.
Oh, is this like a mortuary? You guys know that horror game? Mortuary assistant?
My umbrella supervising. As part of my job is making sure funeral services go smoothly.
Is it a mortuary? Rick, what is a mortuary again?
After the funeral, I did some laps around the place in the truck just to survey the area, as I did at least a couple times a day. I had a lot.
This grave is on 1 HP. Look at that. Paranormal occurrences? Yeah, I've heard of those. I don't really believe in them.
A lot of paperwork to take care of, and on top of this,
I think they're all
had
fake.
To close the cemetery that
maybe
night.
That's a hot take.
So
I don't know.
A little later, I went back to my desk and took care of this. The cemetery closes at 5:30.
I feel like they'd be more well known
as soon as it started to
if
get
they're
dark,
real.
I drove around the place one more time to ensure all visitors had left, then drove over to the front gate to shut it. It was a relatively warm early March. The days were still on the shorter side.
Have you had any paranormal occurrences?
By closing time on a normal day, it would already be getting darker.
I think I would believe in it if I seen
one
one
felt
before.
like it was nighttime. I was driving back to my office when I thought I saw someone hurriedly walking down one of the lanes of tombstones before turning behind a hedge.
Wait, is that a person? Oh my god. That's actually kind of freaky.
When I thought I saw someone hurriedly.
Look, that's a person, is it not?
Walking down one of the lanes of tombstones before turning behind a hedge and disappearing out of sight.
Oh.
I beeped my horn so as to let.
Jeez, that jump scare.
Let them know the place was
That's
closed.
crazy.
But strangely enough, I didn't.
He's not talking about this thing, but dude, that looks like someone in a hood.
I grabbed my umbrella and ran out into the rain in that direction. I turned beyond the hedge he turned at and looked down this long row of tombstones on one side and hedges on the other. I didn't see anyone. I looked around in the rain for a solid 20 minutes, but eventually I had to give up. I drove back up to the office and browsed through the CCTV footage. None of it picked up on any unusual movement, even though it was a bit harder to see much because of the storm and it was also pitch black outside now. I tried to multitask.
I thought this was a
keeping an eye on the
canvas.
camera while finishing up some of my paperwork when I heard the front door to the visitation room slam shut. I sprang up from my chair.
Is that again the Ouija board? Dude, I'm not gonna buy it.
My first thought was that it was the same person I saw before. Maybe they got locked in the cemetery and were looking for assistance.
Now you're gonna say, "Oh, but I thought you didn't believe in ghosts."
But no one was there.
Bro, I'm not gonna buy a Ouija
board. And again said,
just a waste of money.
Maybe the door slamming shut was them leaving.
You can buy one though and tell me what happens.
I started looking out all the windows, and I stopped when at one of them.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say that.
Looking back at me.
You said that like 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
And screamed, and they didn't flinch. I stepped closer.
Give me the same proposition.
Confused look when I realized I recognized this Hispanic older-looking man. In my head, It reminded me exactly of the pictures of Antonio's father he showed me. With my heart in my throat, I ran out the front door of the building and to the side where I saw the man, but he was gone. He wasn't booking it into the field.
So is he like a ghost?
In a bush nearby.
Or is he just a man?
I looked around me as I stood in the rain getting soaked, then ran back inside, packed up my things, locked up, and got in my car. I opened and closed the gate, once more locking it behind me, and drove home. When my wife asked me at home why I was being so quiet, I just told her, long day at work. To this day, I think I was
Scary
just
driving
overworking
footage.
myself, and my mind was playing tricks on me. But it still is genuinely disturbing to think about.
Story 2 by Jeremy. Dang, he goes through 10
I buy the
stories.
same products you do, only I get them much cheaper. I save
Honestly,
hundreds of
the
dollars
only
a month
scary part
by
about
doing
that
this.
story was the honk.
My name is Jeremy. This was in the dead
Oh, it's
of
actually going pretty
October,
quick.
chilly
Already
and
15
windy.
gigs.
I live in a somewhat big town. It's very poor and old, early 18th century type buildings. A friend and I were bored one night and decided to go fuck around
What
at
if
3 a.m.
what if a ghost just appeared
I know
right
that
here?
going out at 3 a.m. in a poor town isn't exactly
every time I
smart,
turn around,
but
it's
we
not
like to
there.
have our fun.
You guys can see it.
We got bored of driving around blasting our music. We're both
Be
very
hella
big
creepy.
metalheads, and at that point we had our own band. So we decided it would be interesting and cool to walk around a cemetery.
Why
in
is this
town.
guy driving in the middle of the road? Are you serious?
Behind the old
What are you
town
doing?
square, there's a massive cemetery. It's divided by two sides of a highway, both sides taking up about 20 acres of land. As I said, it's massive. We decided to check out the older part of the cemetery. This part is completely separated from the rest of the newer cemetery with an old iron fence and gate.
Wow,
We
that's
get to
creepy
walking
actually.
around and checking out the cemetery, trying
Bro, look at this gate though.
around
Dude,
and around and checking
it's literally just a gate. Like, where are all the
old
walls?
iron
Look at that. No wall, just a gate. That's crazy, man.
fence and
Like, bro, what happened to it? Did they like take it
Gate.
down and just
We
leave
get
the
to
relic
walking
of
around
a
and checking out the
freaking gate on
cemetery, trying to read the old moss-covered graves, taking pictures, being a little bit disrespectful, I know. But these were graves from at least a century ago.
Ah, that
There was
doesn't.
no
That's
one
not an
living that
excuse,
would be
Mr.
upset
Nightmare.
by it, and I'm sure the
That's
people
not an
in the graves
excuse.
didn't mind too much.
Nah,
After
they
about
did,
an
bro.
hour of checking
Just
it
got
out,
jump. You're
we
gonna
sit
get jump
down
scared.
next to a giant pecan tree in the middle of the old cemetery. That's when we hear this little girl laughing. Like, I mean, it was really close to us. At first, I assumed maybe it was a toy left on
You
a
don't.
child's
If you
grave
see a
or something like
staircase,
that.
don't walk up it.
I'm not one to scare
The
easily,
forest.
so I just figured it's motion
I won't.
activated or something like that.
I don't go outside much.
We are not
I'm
at
not
all
gonna.
easy
I'm
to
not even
scare.
going in the forest,
So we
so
both
I'm
sort
not
of
worried
laugh,
about that.
pointing out that it's creepy and just keep talking and enjoying the ambiance. Then, as in all stories like
Are all like paranormal occurrences always in these cemeteries? I feel like every time I've watched a video like this, they're in a cemetery. You know what I'm saying? Are they always in these type of places?
this, I get the feeling of something
Where
or
dead people
someone
are?
watching me. Once again, I just figured that I was letting the entire thing get into my head.
What is this
And
guy
my friend
doing?
says he thinks he sees someone in the shadows of a small wooded area right next to the cemetery.
Is that not a person? Are you blind?
Friend says he thinks he sees someone in the
Or
shadows
am I
of
just
a
dumb? What is that?
small
Oh, maybe
wooded
that's a door handle.
area right next
It looks like a head.
to the cemetery, of which we were really close. At this point, we're both a little creeped out and decide to get up and leave.
Yeah,
And
you
that
should have done that
noise,
way
The
faster.
exact same noise played again, and we hear leaves crunching underneath the feet of someone. That's when we booked it. We ran down the hill leading to the old part of the cemetery, down where my car
Damn.
was parked. I've never ran that fast in my life. It sounded like that laughing noise was following
I
us
like
at
how he's
that
saying,
point.
I've never ran that fast, while he's showing footage of him walking like this.
Both sort of just went into full
Bro,
fight or
I thought
flight
you were
mode at
running
that point,
for
going
your
as
life.
fast as we could without thinking.
Oh, and there you go.
Noises behind us stopped as we got
Drives
to
in
my
the middle of
car.
the road again.
I started my car and put it in drive, pulling out into the highway without looking. Luckily, no one hit us. We get down the road to the only gas station that's open at this time of night to check in the back of my car. We had both been discussing how we were scared some shit had been done to it. We get around
Okay,
to
this is the creepiest gas station I've ever seen.
check.
Why would you ever stop
immediately
here?
Find the back door is open. I know for a fact neither of us ever opened it. There was no reason for us to open it. I look in the back seats, make sure nothing's there, get right back in the car, and peel out. I'm still confused about what happened that night. I'm not sure if we both overreacted or what. All I know is
Oh,
that I
they're not
still feel
his?
that weird
Oh,
feeling that something is
okay.
behind you whenever I tell this story.
I thought they were his. He's telling stories about himself. Like he actually had his top 5 cemetery stories. Bro, what is this?
The performance was
Wow.
When
It's
I was
ad.
19, my friend Sean, who was a big goofball, came over to chill in our basement as he often would during the summer. I remember he had a Coke bottle in his hand and I was eating Wendy's when he said we should check out that creepy little cemetery across town. It was
That's
the
actually a
most
pretty cozy
random
home.
idea ever.
Like you got your little pool table with your roundabout couch. Not bad. The TV.
And I even told him that. Still, we had no school the next day, and I knew exactly which cemetery he was talking about. I don't know if one should even call it a regular cemetery. It's just a small plot of land with maybe 100 tombstones at most. The tombstone's very archaic looking, and any time we'd pass, there would be no signs of anyone having come to visit within the last decade. The site probably dated back.
What's up, man? What? Oh my god, bro. Alright, I'll leave this.
Centuries, and it had this super creepy
I'll be
vibe
right
to
back.
it because it was closed off by a gothic metal fence, and it was surrounded by woods on 2 sides, the road on one, and some old abandoned building on the other. Everything about it just gave scary vibes. It took a little persuading, but Sean managed to get me to want to check it out too. Ironically, it was a very cloudy, wettish kind of day, I guess conveniently adding to the mood. Sean pulled up his Honda to the side of the road. I told him to pull up more so it wasn't obvious. This was a low traffic road, so it would look kind of suspicious. He pulled up a few hundred feet down the road, and we got out and cut through the woods so that any potential passing traffic wouldn't see us entering the little cemetery. Hopping the fence in the woods was easy. It was maybe a 3 or 4 foot fence. Sean kind of took the lead on this since it was mainly his venture. He led us through the eerie little plot of land, and we looked at the archaic tombstones. They all seemed to be from the 19th century. The writing on some of them was illegible at that point. I know it sounds super dumb and cliche, but I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched constantly. I started looking around the surrounding woods. I told Sean how creepy this was. "I know," he replied. Still, with the feeling of being watched, I looked at the abandoned building next to the cemetery, at one of the windows. For a brief moment, I knew I saw someone standing at the window, even through the fog, smudge, and dirt on the glass, but they casually either ducked or walked away from the window. I told Sean we were being watched by someone in that building, and he turned to look at it as well. Then he went to look for the entrance to it. I told him don't. I said we should just leave before we get in trouble. I stayed still by the tombstone he was looking at while he walked around the building, and then he found a way in. He called me over, but I stayed put. Then I heard some loud kind of crack, so I looked in that direction, and there was this older man, probably around 55. Gray hair, had on a black raincoat, I believe he was wearing jeans, and he had a mustache, but that's all I really got of him. Then he opened his mouth and screamed, not just yelled, he screamed, "Get out." He screamed it so loud I thought I saw birds fly away from being startled. And just like that, I started to feel lightheaded, and suddenly everything went dark. The next thing I remember was waking up to being dragged in the woods. I freaked out thinking I was being kidnapped, but when I turned and got up, I saw it was just Sean. Sean was freaking out about something. He told me to follow him and run back to the car, so I didn't ask questions. As we ran through the woods, I heard something close behind me, and when I turned, I realized we were being followed by someone, so I ran even faster. We got to his Honda, and he basically put it in drive before the car even had a chance to fully start. When Sean was inside that abandoned building, he found a sigil of Baphomet painted on the wood floor, which is basically the sign of Satan. Around it were a bunch of freaky dolls with buttons for eyes. He didn't get to see anything else in the building, because he heard the old man scream at me outside. He came running to find me passed out on the floor, and he saw the old man slowly walking over to me, He started to drag me away from the old man and into the woods. He actually literally picked me up and threw me over the fence to get me out. I quickly came back to consciousness, and that's when we ran. I had only fainted one time in my life, and it was at that moment. I don't know why I fainted, but it happening at a graveyard with some kind of satanic ritual building right next to it makes it that much stranger.
Okay, there
The
you go.
cemetery he and my grandma chose to be buried at was about an hour drive from my apartment. My family lived closer, so they all went to his grave together. I had to go separately. It was a rainy, depressing day, and there's nothing worse than visiting a cemetery on a gloomy day. The gatekeeper of the gate asked for the plot number. I gave it to him and he let
Careful,
me in.
bro.
It's a pretty big cemetery, and I'd only been there a couple other times. Not as the driver, though, so I had a hard time finding it. I didn't see many other people,
40 minutes?
if
Okay.
any, at the cemetery that day.
Fortnite
I'm sure the
is
weather
done.
had something to do with
Damn,
it.
that was quick.
Eventually, I
I'll
found his
launch it.
stone and parked my car in the grass
Actually,
to
no.
the side. I put some flowers down under his stone, stood there for a while with my eyes closed, and prayed. When I finished my prayer, I opened my eyes and looked up. There was an old man standing about
Oh,
5
so
rows of
creepy.
graves down,
Old man.
directly
Oh
across from me,
no.
and he was looking right at me.
Oh,
I
creepy.
knew this man, though. It was my grandfather.
Oh, what?
But no, it couldn't be. I rubbed my eyes, and he was gone. Did I just have a spiritual moment? Or were my eyes and mind playing tricks on me?
I think both.
Either way, I got the chills and I had goosebumps. I was quite honestly freaked out.
Wait, aren't chills and goosebumps the same thing?
I got back
How
in
do you
my
have both?
car, said, "Love you, Grandpa," and drove off. I felt like I had a headache on my way home. Not sure why. I was the only car on Prospect Road, a quiet road with dense forest on either side. Commonly, there would be deer crossing here. As my car zipped down the road, I spotted
Okay.
someone on the side of the road coming up.
So you gotta
Odd.
come on every stream.
There were no sidewalks or a walking path on this road. I slowed down. It couldn't be. It looked like my grandpa again. When I realized this, my heart dropped 1,000 feet, and I swerved the car accidentally. I desperately tried
Yo,
to
what's up,
regain
Busby?
control and come to a stop. Luckily, my car didn't end up in a tree.
We're watching some
Rather,
creepy
just skidded
cemetery
out in the middle
stories.
of the road until coming to a halt. I immediately looked back to where I saw him, and I saw a deer on the side of the road, looking at my car. My heart was literally racing. I was terrified. I was not well, and I needed to get home. I made sure no cars were coming and got back in my lane. I focused on the road as best I could, given what I had just seen twice. I felt weird the rest of the day. Not sick, but something wasn't right with my head. I went to bed early after watching an episode of my show.
Watch, there's gonna be like a ghost or something, right?
I woke up at like 2 in the morning to
You're
my phone
scared?
ringing.
Oh, don't be
It
scared,
was an
man.
unknown number.
It's just a
Heart
scary
started
ghost
racing
story.
again. Any call at this hour couldn't be good news. I accepted the call and put the phone up to my ear. There was static on the other end. Finally, I said, "Hello?" More static. But what I thought I heard next, I couldn't believe. Just briefly, for maybe half a second, I thought I heard my grandpa's voice over the static.
It's so unrealistic, bro. This actually didn't happen. Come on. Watch it be like
I
one
tried
big
to say
prank.
hello again, but
on
I
this
was
guy.
too shook. Every part of my body was actually shaking.
Or he could just have
Then the call
what is it
cut to
called?
silence and ended. I called my
schizophrenia.
phone provider the
Yeah,
next
it's
day to
called.
trace the number. They couldn't. They didn't have enough data to trace it, apparently. Though I don't know if that was just bullshit or not.
Oh,
The
he
events
said the
that
word.
took place that day and night were the scariest I've ever experienced. Do I think my dead grandpa was trying to contact me? I don't know, because that sounds ridiculous. You'd think if you experienced something like this, you'd be so full of emotion and joy. But no, it still terrifies me, and I really still don't know what to think or how to feel about it. Whether it sounds ridiculous or not, this happened, and I wonder almost every other night, was that really my grandpa on the phone?
Wow. Story 5, okay.
We're giving away our $60
Dude, I've
tactical
gotten
backpack
so many
for
ads on
no
this video.
charge. You only have to pay the shipping.
That's crazy. I think I've gotten like 6 ads or. Guy gets money.
My friends and I were very stupid when we were teenagers. I was like 17 or 18 when this happened. It was the month of October, and I wanted to do something scary in the spirit of Halloween. There's a small cemetery about 10 minutes from where I live, and when I was drunk with a couple friends, I said we should sneak into it.
Oh, this guy was drinking at 18?
Make up some names for my friends.
Or 17?
Ryan and Mike. We were at Ryan's house. He didn't drink ever. So when I came up with the idea, he was the one to drive us to the cemetery. Mike and I were really the ones leading this.
Oh yeah, that's such a good idea.
Ryan was just along for the ride.
Go to the cemetery
Then
when you're
again,
drunk.
He hadn't been drinking.
And it's
Ryan parked
nighttime.
in some parking lot across the street. It was a ghost town because it was past midnight at that point. We made sure no one was around to see us as we hopped the fence into the cemetery. It wasn't exactly pitch black out, but it was slightly hard to see more than 10 feet in front of us. So we were all using our iPhone flashlights. There didn't appear to be any night security.
I don't
in the
know.
cemetery.
I don't know what these guys expected. Like,
So we
they came to the cemetery not even prepared. They just used their flashlight from their. These are all submitted to him? Oh, I see. Okay. Dude, they should have been
kind of
prepared.
dispersed from each
I guess they
other.
were drunk, but
Ryan seemed to be.
you should have brought
following Mike
flashlights.
more
Actual
closely.
ones
I
are
could
good.
Still see where they were because of their flashlights. I went off a little further on my own, and I decided I'd start taking a creepy video. So I started recording with the light still on, of course. I recorded a bunch of old headstones and the general eerie vibe of the cemetery at night. I didn't see Mike and
Wonder where he
Ryan
gets these
anymore,
pictures from.
so I started to go look for them, still recording. I looked at my phone screen and froze. There was a woman, dressed in a white gown or dress, I want to say, with long, gray-looking hair.
They actually showed a picture. Wow.
She was looking down at the
So they say that's a woman? Pretty woman-like.
ground.
Pretty
I
woman-like
looked up
figure
from
right
my
there.
phone screen to look at her in person, but she was gone.
Like, bro, that's what is that? Looks like a noodle.
I started to back away. I looked back at my phone screen, and there she was again. Only now she was looking into the camera, or rather looking at me. I looked up from the phone again and could not see her once more, so I looked back down at the screen again, and there I could see her moving closer to me. I started
Real?
to scream for Mike and Ryan as I sprinted away from that spot. I couldn't see their lights anywhere, and they weren't answering my screams. I had a feeling they were going to try to scare me, so I ran back for the fence of the cemetery to hop it and get out.
Good idea.
I made it to Ryan's car and texted the two of them saying they need to get out of the cemetery now. They met me at the car minutes later.
Oh,
We
is that
all
the end of the
sat in
story?
car, and I showed them the video I took. They had the same horrified looks on their faces I did. Now that I was actually watching the whole video, I could
Dang,
see
he
the
actually
moment
took
the
a video
woman
of it.
slowly lifted her head from looking at the ground to looking at me, and then she starts to move towards
Dude, these are submitted, right? Why didn't you just submit the video? If it's real.
me.
I don't understand.
We
Why?
could only see her moving for like a second or two before I start screaming in the video and running away. But the way she was moving, we could see no leg movement.
Did he like delete it or
It
something?
almost seemed as though she were
Why wouldn't he
floating to
submit
me.
it to him?
I have that video saved on my old iPhone 4S. But
Yeah,
the
there you
stupid
go.
thing won't turn on. It gets
Oh,
stuck at
okay. Excuses.
the Apple logo.
Excuses.
I don't want to reset that phone until I can get that video off of it somehow.
You normally like to listen to him?
My friends
Okay.
firmly
He
believe
does
the
have a
woman
satisfying
in the video
voice.
was a real, living person who also happened to be in the cemetery that night. But me, having been the one to actually find her,
Classic
only being
foggy
able to
graveyard.
see her on my
Yeah,
phone
I
screen.
swear, every
Well,
single one of these are in a
just saying,
graveyard.
I was never a
with fog.
believer in the paranormal until that night.
Alright. That was a pretty good video. None of them were really that scary, and honestly not that believable. Well, I can see how people like this. Alright, I'll subscribe.